Well, hello. Welcome to the Art of Renovation Live. I'm your host, Paul Foster from Contact Renovation and Custom Homes. This week, we're going to be discussing solar power. And my guest is Rick Young from Habitat Studio. Solar, it's something that's become far more, I don't think popular is the word, I guess. Let's call it accessible over the last few years. I know that it initially was much more difficult and a bit cost prohibitive at first. And I think people now are becoming more aware of it and definitely more interested within the option of adding solar in their new home or retrofitting into their existing home for a variety of different reasons. So we'll talk to Rick in depth today about solar. And if you have any questions about solar energy or solar power and how it could fit in your home, then please do reach out. I'll be happy to answer your questions. I'm just going to try and pin a topic here. Rumor has it you can pin these. Bear with me. Well, it didn't work. Anyways, I tried. Okay, so Rick Young, he works with Habitat Studio. And for those of you who know about Habitat Studio, they're one of the most progressive and I guess kind of cutting edge builders in Edmonton. They're certainly at the forefront of the energy efficiency home industry. I know that they have done some really amazing work locally. Whether you're into their energy efficient projects or not, they build a very, very beautiful house. They now have a division where they offer their services in solar, which is great for contractors like me who want to partner with somebody that we trust. So that's where Habitat comes in here. So a bit about Rick before I pull him into the show. So he's always had an interest in science and construction, which ultimately led him to work for Habitat Studio, where he's now a managing partner and project manager. For those of you who don't know about Habitat, you should look them up, check out their portfolio. It's very remarkable. They're an industry leader in energy efficient homes, whether it's design or construction. Habitat started last year their own in-house solar division. So now they offer their services direct to homeowners or contractors, so not just in the homes they build themselves. Rick's in charge of the solar division, so he's the man to talk to about adding solar to your home. So without further ado, I'm going to pull Rick in here. Bear with me. All right. Okay, wait for Rick to come in here. I'll pull up some images here in a second. I have to wait for Rick to join the call. So yeah, I mean, whether it's a new build or a retrofit, I think the process is quite different. So it's just a matter of, oh, there he is.
Good.
Thanks for
joining.
All right. I'll put up a little background. There's your info. So welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, we're doing good.
Good.
So I think today, I mean, the intent of the show is always somewhat educational to help people understand what's available to them out there in the marketplace. I think today's show, we don't want to get too terribly technical about it, as we might, it can get quite technical, right? So we'll kind of keep it high level so everyone can understand it. And then later in the show, we can get into some of the more technical details, or if there's questions specific to the installation process or requirements, we can get into that too. But I think for now it's just a matter of kind of overview of how it all works, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good.
So I pulled up, so I got some slides here that I'll pull up throughout the show, and I guess we might as well start with how the whole process works as far as adding solar energy into the home. And as we do renovations and custom builds, but our primary thing is we do reno. So I think we'll talk mostly about retrofitting the systems into homes right now, but we also can, we can talk a bit about with new construction. I'm sure the process is a little bit different. So I'll pull up this slide here. Now, of course, my head's in the way. So anyhow, so maybe you can just give us kind of a general breakdown on how the solar system works on a pretty high level.
Okay, so I guess basically based on your slide here, so you've got the main part of it is the PV module, the solar module on the roof there, and it's gonna collect the energy from the sun, convert it into electricity. It's gonna start as DC electricity and then come down off the roof into your inverter, in this case. So that's going to convert that into the power that you can use within your home, because your home is all AC power. So, so then while you're operating appliances and lighting in your house, you're going to use that energy directly. And then if you're at work during the day, all your power appliances and things are off, you're still producing. You've got two options. You can push that power back into the grid, or into the electrical grid, or you can put it into a battery bank to store it for use later. So,
Gotcha.
I guess a real high level
rundown
of that slide.
That sounds good. That's a good starting point. And you know what? I forgot to talk a bit about our giveaway. I do this almost every show. I get so excited to start talking about the topic. So Rick has offered up this week for our giveaway item. We have this Goal Zero Nomad 7. It's a solar panel. So to be entered into the contest, you have to answer this skill testing question. I always make them super hard. And then at the end of the show, we'll draw. So the question this week is, who built Canada's first, I guess we'd call it, registered net zero home? The subtle hint is maybe they're a guest on my show today. But anyway, so if you're interested in winning the prize, you need to be from the Edmonton area unless you're prepared to pay for shipping. And you can either pick it up from Habitat Studio or from my office. We'll announce the details later. So yeah, we'll go from there. We'll continue on here. So I guess on this high level of solar, let's talk about, I guess, the different ways that they can be installed. Obviously, they can be on your roof. They can be on a wall. And I've seen them installed on the ground. So I guess what would be the most common application that you guys find?
I guess like residentially within the city, like everybody's seen, the most common is going to be on a roof. Most people's yards aren't big enough for a ground mount. There's too much shading from the house. So most common by far is a roof mount system, whether that's a flat roof ballasted system or a sloped roof with a racking system. So you have the same picture there. So this is a roof mount system on it's a standing seam metal roof. And this is just mounted exactly on the slope of the roof. So this house had a great south orientation, so it made it quite easy.
Nice. There's another project. Looks like another metal roof.
Yeah, that one again is a metal roof. So same sort of racking system on that one. So as you go out to maybe a rural project, maybe an acreage or like a small farm or something like that, then you're going to see more common the ground mount because they have the space that they can spread these out. So this is another that's another roof mount solar. The same racking system. It keeps it fairly tight to the roof, follows the exact slope of the roof. So these are all sloped roofs. You could also have a flat roof that's a ballasted system where you're loading up trays and then the panels are tilted relative to the roof. Yeah, so that one's got a 10-degree tilt with an RM10 roof mount system. You can sort of see the blocks there. So there's lots of versatile systems that you can use to adapt to almost any roof situation. The ground mounts can be either fixed, they can be single axis tilt, so you can optimize your production through the year, or you can also have a tracking system where it's on a pole, and that will track actually east-west and change this angle to optimize them throughout the season for maximum production.
Gotcha. Let's talk a bit about the roof application for now. Let's think about someone who wants to retrofit solar energy into their home. So typically, do you find the need for someone like for structural reinforcement on someone's roof before they can take the load of the panels, or?
It'll definitely depend on the roof, the age of the roof and how it's built. As you know, older roofs are stick framed, and so we have an engineer that will review the home, and in order to get a building permit for your solar panels, because they do require a permit, you need a structural engineer or stamp drawings that tell the city that the roof will take the load of the solar panels. You get a little bit of extra wind load. You can get some snow loading. If you have a flat roof, you can get the ballast weight has to be accounted for within that roof system. So primarily on a new house, we'll make sure that our trusses are designed for that extra load before we even start. On a retrofit like this one, this was a retrofit we just recently completed.
Oh.
We had truss drawings on this house because it's relatively new, and just sent them to an engineer. He reviewed them and made sure we can put them on. So
Gotcha. So I guess, like, I see lots of 50s bungalows out there that are starting to have the panels pop up on them. This is not a 50s bungalow, but again, it's lots of them will have their classic gable roof, or maybe it's a cottage roof, whatever. But if you're considering adding solar to your home, it's something to consider. It's much more than just the cost of the solar panels and installation. There'll be electrical requirements, maybe some structural requirements.
Yeah.
And also you need to consider the orientation of your home, where it sits and
Yeah.
where it faces. So we should talk a little about that, Rick, because I think that's something that everybody might want solar, but where their house sits, depending on shading and orientation, it might not actually really make sense for them.
Yeah, so we got a couple different tools. We have a solar eye, which will actually take a picture at a 180-degree picture. You orient this camera facing south, and it exports that picture into a software program. And that software program will tell you exactly the shading that you're getting from, say, boulevard trees or a neighboring house. Maybe you've got a building behind you. So that's one of the tools that we can use to say, okay, your house is going to work or it's not going to work. We're also going to do a little bit of we have a modeling program called Helioscope that we use. And with that program, we can do something similar to the solar eye. It will allow us to take, from a Google Maps perspective, a satellite perspective, draw out your roof, enter the slope of that roof, and that will tell us how many panels will fit. And it will also, from there, give us an estimate of how much energy they'll produce. That program links with our solar eye, and so that accounts for the shading. We make a few adjustments for snow soiling and stuff like that, and then we can tell you how much solar, how much energy you'll be able to produce from an array on your home. And then from there, we can look at what the cost is going to be, and also what your roof area is and how much power you use, to see if we can match those numbers.
Right. So I guess generally a southwest orientation would be ideal as far as mass.
Yeah, definitely south obviously is your best orientation. This picture you've got going right now, we have some south, we have some east, and then we also have some north facing on this home. Just they wanted to get a little bit more power out of it, and we were able to it modeled out that it was worthwhile on this one. We were already there. We already had the infrastructure for the inverters and stuff. We didn't have to upgrade any of that, and it gave them that little bit of extra power that they were looking for on their home. So
nice.
Multiple orientations can work. We'll always model them out to see what kind of production you're going to get out of those. So, and then also your roof slope. So the steeper your roof slope, the better. You want to be around. The ideal is equal to your latitude. So here it's about 53 degrees is your ideal orientation. So most roofs aren't that steep. This one is. But not every house is going to have that kind of slope.
Right.
The lower slope roofs, you're going to get more production in the summer because they're more perpendicular to the sun and high in the sky. But you're also going to have more snow soiling, like snow loss, unless you're up there shoveling them. The steeper roofs, the snow will slough off. So yeah, there's a number of different factors that you want to just optimize, and we can do that through modeling.
Gotcha. So I guess in somebody whose the roof line doesn't really work well, I guess the other option is something like we have here. We have a wall mount as an option, right? So this one's mounted as an awning, which I think is kind of a creative way to get some of that slope at the same time.
Yeah, and as you can see on this picture, the awnings they're a fixed awning, so they're serving two purposes in this situation. You're collecting PV energy, you're producing electricity, but at the same time, you can see they're also shading all of the windows on this building. So by shading those windows in the summer when it's warm and the sun is high, you're decreasing your cooling loads because you're not overheating as much. So these solar awnings are sort of doing double duty. We did do some that were an adjustable awning. So during the summer, you could tip them down to this type of orientation and maximize your production of PV and shade the windows. But then in the winter, we could tip them up so they were more vertical. And in the winter, the snow would come off of them, and also being more vertical to pick up that low sun, almost perpendicular. So ideally, your panels would be always exactly perpendicular to the sun so that your surface area is maximized on them.
Nice. So when you see these, like a flat wall install, I guess that's just because they're trying to maximize their coverage. Do they have some on the roof in this home as well?
Yeah, this one has, I think we're 3, 6. There's only 5 in here. There's 3 more went in between those 2 panels. Okay. And they have 78 panels in the ballasted system on the roof there. So we wanted just a little bit of extra on this one. Aesthetically, they look pretty good. There's a golf course straight across from this house, so people can see them, and they actually do produce a decent amount of power through the winter. You can see, obviously, there's no snow sitting on them, whereas if you were to get on top of that roof right now, those panels would likely be covered in snow and producing very little. So we watched this one pretty carefully this year. We can see every array that we have to make sure it's operating properly and there's no panels that are going down. We check them every once in a while, and the homeowners have the same access. So those vertical panels actually did really well this winter for producing.
Nice. So what generally motivates people to take that step to adding solar to their home? What's their driving factor that you typically see? And I know there's multiple reasons, but what's the most common?
Yeah, I think primarily it's people really want to be able to produce their own power, a little bit of autonomy, which you're not getting without the battery packs, and then also just that environmental impact that they're wanting to make. Secondly, I think would be the being able to produce some of your own electricity and save those costs. To go on the renovation side, we're finding people are not necessarily doing it to go net zero energy, but they are trying to achieve net zero electricity. Most of the houses that you'd be retrofitting are still going to have a gas furnace or a gas hot water tank. So pretty hard to offset some of those without doing a major retrofit. But people are looking to go net zero electricity, which in most cases we've been able to come pretty close to. And so once the way you're going to do it, you always want to conserve first, but if you want to sort of maximize your power, if you can use your power bills to determine your electricity usage, design your array to that, and then try and conserve so you can actually maybe produce a bit of a surplus. So electricity companies maybe don't want to hear that.
Yeah. No kidding.
So I think those would be the primary reasons people are doing it at the moment. So
okay. So let's talk a bit about the giveaway again here. So Rick and Habitat Studio have offered up this Goal Zero Nomad 7 solar panel for the giveaway draw today. So to be entered in the draw, you need to be able to answer which contractor or home builder here in Edmonton had Canada's first certified net zero home. Give you a hint. you're looking right at one of their managing partners and project managers. So, yeah. So actually, let's talk a little bit about that. So you guys, I was doing some research on you guys, and I saw that you had Canada's first certified net zero. And what does that actually mean? Because I know that you have done, you've been doing this for a while. And a friend of mine actually has one of your first houses that he called net zero. It just wasn't at that point certified. So
yeah, so Enercan has come up with a net zero energy labeling program in conjunction with the EnerGuide label. So we had an EnerGuide label for quite a while, and they revamped it in 2015. It used to be based on a 0 to 100 scale, where 100 was the best you could be, which would be net zero. And then it was kind of an arbitrary scale. So then they revamped it to this new current form. And so now zero actually equates to net zero energy. So the number can slide along that scale. So this was actually the first new label produced, and it was on one of the houses we produced or built, the net zero home that's producing surplus actually of energy. So it's pretty hard to see on that picture, but 122 gigajoules would be the average house. So that's the average amount of power that the home uses in this situation. So they're comparing to an average house of sort of the same size versus the house that you built. So the City of Edmonton actually has a really good map of, and it shows a number of homes throughout the city that, and it shows the EnerGuide label for each of those homes. So there's a number of new builders and then a number of just homeowners who have decided to put their house on there. So it's a really good representation, of the homes in the city and how they're performing. It ties into their, they have a map that for that. So it's a really good resource for you to look at and see what's being built in your neighborhood, how your house compares. If you have an auditor come out and do an energy audit on your home, it'll give you your EnerGuide label.
Mm-hmm. So I guess you talked a bit about how that house was able to generate a surplus of energy. So I have heard of this where you actually can sell back to EPCOR.
Mm-hmm. You can EPCOR to sell back. So in Alberta, we have what's called net billing. So they take your billing in what you've paid out, and when you sell it back to the grid, our distribution charges and our energy costs are separated. So you pay the distribution charges as you use energy from the grid. You pay the distribution charge and the energy charge, or the actual electricity charge. When you have a surplus and put it back into the grid, you get a credit only for the energy cost. So if you go to a province like BC, where they have a net metering, their distribution charges and their electricity charges are combined in one. So then you do get that distribution charge back. So we're a little bit behind in Alberta on the refund portion of it, or the net billing portion. But if you produce a surplus, you will get that back.
Gotcha. Okay, I guess in terms of a retrofit, is there a certain era of home that either makes sense or is relatively easy, and are there like some of the older houses, is it not worth it? Like what have you found in the renovation side of things?
I think obviously your easiest house is going to be like a gable roof, no dormers in it, with that south-facing orientation, a nice square surface to work off. If you got a nice 12-12 pitch on an old wartime bungalow that happens to face south, you're probably in good shape. A lot of those old wartime bungalows, if you look in the Strathcona neighborhood and stuff, unfortunately the lots run north-south, and those nice sloped roofs face east and west. So. Yep. And if they do face south, you've likely got a massive boulevard tree sticking out in front of you. So,
very true.
Kind of ideal lot would be with if you had a south-facing backyard where those boulevard trees tend not to be as intrusive. You might have some power lines or a power pole or a tree in your backyard or something like that. So some of the smaller cottage roofs are a little harder to work with because you got to work around the hips and valleys and stuff. But as you can see on that one, we managed to fit quite a few panels on that house in the hips and like on the just above the valleys and stuff. So the install is obviously easier if you can put in a big square or rectangular array. Your racking just all stays straight. Yeah, that one was simple. That's 36 panels on that roof, and so you got 6 rails to run, and then just start slamming panels on them. So, so that's your sort of ideal roof. That one doesn't face straight south, but you can see it's on a curve in Park Allen. So, yeah, there are various challenges. Some of the older houses are going to be a little smaller. The roof is going to be smaller, and you do have some fixed costs in these. You get some fixed costs in the engineering and permitting and stuff. Those costs don't change based on their array size. So some of those smaller houses may not be as economical, but you can definitely still put something on there. So you're probably getting into your sort of late 50s, early 60s houses in Edmonton. You got the neighborhoods that had larger lots. You're getting into 2-story homes that are getting over the tree lines a little bit more, getting you up out of the shade. Those are probably the areas where you're going to have you're going to see a real surge, I think, in solar installations. So that's probably the area that I think you'll see. And there are also houses in those neighborhoods. They're getting to be sort of 50 years old. So those are probably the ones you're seeing in your business that the renovations on those houses are starting. They're on great lots. The lot values are good, really good neighborhoods, and people don't want to move. So the renovation side of that, I think, that's where you're going to see a lot more solar installs.
I agree.
In the near future.
I guess we'll shout out our giveaway again here. Then we'll start talking a bit about options in regards to type of panels, and we'll get slightly more technical here. But so Habitat Studio has offered up this Goal Zero Nomad 7 Plus solar panel as a giveaway item today. So to be entered in the draw, just enter in the comments what the name of the contractor is, the builder who had Canada's first certified net zero home. And if you need a hint, well, you should look at the cover of the show. Maybe I could throw this in front of you for a second. Boom, there's a hint. All right. So let's talk a bit. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, one other thing we haven't really talked about is that in a residential within the city, that array doesn't necessarily have to go on your house. Lots of people have a detached garage.
Good point.
Doesn't necessarily work. Then maybe you can put that array on your garage, or potentially people are building garden suites. You can design a garden suite that has a little bit of space on the roof as well. So we've done a couple garage installations recently, and again, they've worked out fairly well. The roofs are usually a little bit simpler than the house. And if they're in that south-facing backyard, you've got good exposure and not as much shading. So
absolutely, yeah. We had talked about doing a project together, but unfortunately, with the economical climate we have right now, that project's been put on hold. But yeah, the garden suites, that's certainly a great place where you can design it to maximize that exposure too, right? So absolutely. So as far as the panels themselves go, and we won't get super technical here, but I found a couple of slides that talk about the different options, and I just bought a solar panel for my travel trailer recently to top up my battery, and I was looking at it on the weekend going, oh, look at that. Well, I have a poly, not knowing initially that there was much of a difference between them. So what's most common here, and I guess what are the advantages or disadvantages between them?
Yeah, so the polycrystalline are they're a little bit less efficient panel in producing the electricity, but at the same time, they're a little bit less expensive. So they're going to be The panels that probably have a bit lower on the same size panel, if you had a 60 cell, they're going to probably be produce a little less power than the monocrystalline. So monocrystalline are more efficient, but also more expensive. So those are going to be your higher powered panels. And then the half cell are split. So if you have you can't really see on these. If you have, the panels are connected along the bottom, the different cells of the panel. So if you get snow built up along that bottom when your panel is in portrait mode, sitting vertically, that will reduce that panel down to almost nothing. So with the half cells, you can split that. Like the upper half will still work while that bottom is soiled. So you get a little bit less shading, less influence of shading with the half cell panels. So, and then you can also get into a bifacial panel, which are typically poly or mono, and those ones will pick up from the backside, so they're clear. The background is clear, so you can get some reflectivity. They don't work really well on a roof mount, but on a ground mount system where you've got sort of more than a meter behind the panel, you can get some reflectivity, and so they can gain you maybe up to 30% extra out of your panel. So
So if you had a ground mount, something like this, and you went with that clear back panel, then would it be best installed then on a concrete or some sort of light colored reflective surface then to maximize its?
Yeah, definitely. If you've got something that will be reflective behind it, you can pick up off of that. So they're kind of neat, and they're actually, I think that's what they're putting on the Shaw Conference Center. I think so that they're letting some light through into it. I don't know if you've seen the big array that's being installed there, but the commercial.
I heard about it, yeah.
But I think they're probably bifacial, so you can see through them and you get some reflection off the back of them. So,
gotcha. Interesting. Yeah. So, I guess let's talk a little bit about the choice of what panel you made your choice, what type of panel you want, and then I guess we have to talk about the inverters a bit, because I can see from some of these diagrams it makes a big difference within how they're going to operate here. So of course my head's in the way again, but you can see that. Yeah, that top image, you can see the shade shows. Well, you explain it. You're the.
So that very top one is a string inverter. So it's kind of your simplest system. And so the limitations of it's less expensive, the inverters, and the install, but the limitation on those is that if you have a little bit of shade on a single panel, then that shade's going to affect every panel equally. I've heard it equated to a traffic jam. If you have one car that slows down, all of them slow down. So if you have one electron that's not being able to go, all of them are going at that same speed. So if you have a ground mount where your shading is minimal, or you have a high roof that's really clear, a string inverter's a great option. So the next one down is a power optimizer. So the string inverter is sending DC power back to a remote inverter, which is converting it to AC power that you can use in your home. So the power optimizers are doing that same thing, except what they're doing is taking each panel and making it an individual, so they aren't operating in a traffic jam sort of scenario. So you can see on the one panel, it's got some shade from that tree and it's only operating at 50%, but the rest of them that don't have any shade are still operating at 100%. So that's the sort of the next level. And then that again is coming down into an inverter sort of next to your electrical panel, and that way. So one benefit of that system is you can combine that inverter with an EV car charger. And so your EV car charger can then come right off of that, and you're not getting the losses converting from your DC coming off your roof into AC and then converting back to DC to charge your car. So, and you bypass your panel and can get a little extra juice straight into your car out of that. You're also, if you're charging your car straight through that inverter and not through your power meter, you're not paying those distribution charges. So you're using the power within your home at the same time as you're going. So, and then your third option on that slide is a microinverter. So they have the same ability to individualize the panels and make each one unique, but they're converting your DC power to AC right on the roof. So as it comes off the roof, it's already in your usable AC power, and it plugs directly into your electric panel because it's already the same power you're going to use in your house. So this is a picture of that's a roof jack. It's called Solar Deck. That's a combiner box in there, so it's got some breakers inside, and that combines all the strings and then down into your panel into a disconnect and a single breaker. So you can see some of the connections within that. So you can use the same thing for string inverters and such. So you just have a different version of it. So,
Gotcha.
So yeah, those are your three options that are most common these days. So
okay, let's talk about the electric cars for a minute here. Which I'm assuming this is going to be to power the car. So the job that we were going to work on, we were going to have a Tesla that was going to get plugged in at the garage, right? So typically, like, what kind of energy requirements does this car have? Like, could panels on your garage, and I know there's a lot of variables here, but be enough to charge your car on a regular basis, or do you still need more from additional sources?
You're likely, then depending on your usage, I think if your car is sitting at home during the day and you have a high enough powered array, it would be able to charge your batteries consistently through the day. A lot of people, unfortunately, take their car to work, so it's not at home charging during the day when they're producing all that power. So that is a little bit of a negative, but you will most likely need to pull some power back through the grid, and these inverters are designed to work that way. So they will, if your array is not producing enough power to charge your car, it will use the grid to make up that power. And you can set various parameters for that to maximize when your car is charging and how it's charging on these units to get the best benefit out of it. So again, like ideally, if you have solar on your house with no battery backup or battery storage, you want to use most of the energy you're producing in the house while you're producing it, rather than export it and then buy it back again. So if you can set your dryer, which is a high load appliance, if you can set that to run during the day when you're producing power, you can charge that directly off of your solar, or you can run it directly off your solar and use that energy without the distribution charges that you're getting. So in Alberta, you want to maximize that as much as you can, your daytime power usage.
Yeah, so a bit of planning has to go in, then how you're going to actually, schedule your use of energy. Now, are you seeing people put battery packs in most of their systems?
We haven't done a lot of battery backup. Batteries are still really expensive here. We don't have time of use metering, so some provinces have different rates of power for peak times. So you could produce power during the low peak times, save it in your batteries, and use your own power during high rate times. We don't have that here in Alberta, and our grid is actually really, really stable. We don't get a lot of power outages, so we haven't seen a lot of battery backups installed. They increase the cost quite a bit, and because we do have a fairly stable grid there. So we are seeing battery costs come down, the same as we've seen solar power come down. But for the most part in Alberta, I'm not seeing a lot of, we've quoted some out, and the cost is pretty high on them. So you can make sure that you have the option to sort of future-proof it, your system, in case batteries do come down. But for the most part right now, we're not seeing a lot of battery usage within the city anyways.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess then most people, their goal then is to cover their operating costs of their home and
Yeah.
plan to use it when it's generating the most power for them.
Yeah, if you can do that, it's going to take some planning because often you're not home. So maybe you leave in the morning and you run the dryer. If you have a timer on your dryer, that would work. If you have air conditioning, it works quite well with solar. You get the heat in the day, and your air conditioning will run on that. If you can time your appliances to work, adjust your lifestyle a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and go from there with power.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about some and really rough costs, I guess, here, or considerations first, I suppose. So let's say that I own a 50s bungalow. I got a nice south orientation, classic gable roof. So there's lots of a nice rectangle of roof to throw some panels on.
Yep.
Aside from that, okay, that's a great check mark off the list of, it making it far more feasible to retrofit solar. What do I need to do electrically speaking as far as the wiring, my electrical panel, all these things? Are there changes that are needed there?
It totally depends on what's existing. If you have a fairly old bungalow, if you're in those wartime bungalows, you might have a 60 amp panel on your house. So in that case, you're likely going to have to upgrade it. If you have a 100 amp panel in your house, currently you don't have all the breakers full, most likely you'll be okay with a decent sized array on there. There's a calculation that you can go through to figure out your bus bar size and how much that will allow you. It's all based on the amperage of your service and the electrical panel. So you got to make sure that the wire coming into the house can handle it, and also make sure that the electrical panel itself can handle those extra loads, and the maximum power coming out of that array. So you can probably, you're going to max out on a decent sized roof. You will max out with a 100 amp panel, but you can upgrade that. The EPCOR can upgrade some stuff, but you're also adding a lot of costs there if you have to do upgrades to your electrical panel and your electrical service. Gotcha. So definitely you need an electrician to come in and sort of do an evaluation on your current electrical panel and whatever loads and service you have in the house. So, and then the other limitation is going to be that the power providers are not going to want you to be producing a surplus. So that's where your 1 or 2 years of annual electricity bills, or I think EPCOR keeps track of it. They can tell you exactly how much power you've used in recent years and want to keep you to about that amount of production.
Gotcha.
On your, so in Alberta we do have a really good, we're second province in the country for solar production. I think we get in the range of 1,200 kilowatt hours per kilowatt of solar on the roof per year. Just a lot of units, but yeah, we're second province, so we do have really good potential to produce solar electricity.
Absolutely. What about someone who's considering going solar, adding it to their home? And I guess your roof type is something to consider, right? So if you have a classic asphalt shingle, I would assume that this makes re-roofing your home a challenge after the solar has been installed. So
yeah, you definitely want to make sure that your roof is either relatively new or has a lot of life left in it. You see a lot of these are metal roofs that we've put them on. The life of a metal roof is great. The life of an asphalt roof is great too, especially if you're putting solar on it. You're shading your asphalt shingles so they're not getting beat up by the sun. So yeah, you want to. I would love to put some solar panels on my roof at the moment, but I need a new roof first. So so that's one of the plans on my house down the road here. So this is you can see an attachment to an asphalt shingle. either screwed down either into a truss, or some of them now are engineered that you don't need to be right into a truss. You can see there's a gusset underneath it, sort of swelling out there. That's for waterproofing.
Yeah.
And so lots of different options for mounting to various types of roof. Like we saw the ballasted. So those are the ballasts. Those get loaded with panels. That's actually the house that had the vertical on top. So those ballasts sit on the roof. There's metal roofs have a clip that we can actually clip right onto the rib. So those are all engineered. It's actually a company, a Canadian company that makes those S5. So they come for every different kind of metal standing seam or corrugated roof. So they have brackets for those. And then you just mount your, as you can see there, that's a metal roof. So you got those same clips, and then your rails are mounted right to that. And then you can see he's installing the, he's got a micro inverter there that he's installing on that roof. So, so yeah, you definitely, we did one recently. They had some solar thermal panels. Their roof was old, so we took the solar thermal off, redid the roof, reinstalled those, and then installed the new PV panels. So there's an option for every type of roof out there to install them, and then also the wall mount ones that you had mentioned earlier. So
absolutely. Yeah. If you're considering a retrofit on your existing home, you know, definitely you need to factor in your condition of your existing roof. If it's anywhere near needing replacement, you better budget for that before you have your solar panels brought in.
Yeah.
Also, then assess your electrical. If you have an old 60 amp panel, well, there's more than one reason to get it upgraded to 100 amp. And even if you're at 100 amp, if you're full, you still might need to upgrade to 200, or I guess it'll depend on the home and, you know, the size and the draw.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all part of what we would do as an estimate for putting together a package for any house that we were working on. So like you mentioned before, we had talked well ahead of you doing a garage suite and things. So we made sure your service and any changes you're making were done and up to date before we got to the point where you're going backwards. So definitely planning ahead is something you need to do, especially with new homes and renovations. If you're building a new home, make sure you've got your trusses. It's not very expensive to start with. Just add a little more lumber to your truss, or make sure your loads are covered. But if you're gonna have to do it later, you want to make sure that it's going to be more expensive. So
yeah, with anything you do in your home, you need to plan it well, right? We're getting closer to the end of the show. We should probably do our last call on our giveaway. So Habitat Studio has offered up this Go Zero Nomad 7 Plus solar panel as a giveaway item. To qualify for the draw, you need to enter the name of the custom home builder who had Canada's first certified net zero home. If you just joined the show and you're not too sure, here's a hint. Also, Rick Young, my guest today, works for them. So I always make these so easy, but I just love to give it away, right? Why make it a struggle? Let's talk briefly about snow. We talked about it a bit earlier in the show. How does snow impact your panels? And like I've seen before that there were some automated systems to be able to remove snow from the panels. Now, what's your experience with planning around snow load and all that stuff?
Yeah, so these pictures here are actually a really neat experiment that the guys at NATE did. So they set up this array, and it's definitely worth looking up and reading the results. So they set up the array, and one half they cleared the snow off every time it snowed. The other half they left the snow on. So your lower panels, I think they came up with, it wasn't a massive difference. So you can see the upper ones are the snow is sloughing off those and staying up, but those panels are almost, and they're vertical. So the lower ones are almost flat. So in the winter, that sun is almost skipping off them because they're so off angle when the sun is really low in the sky. So the benefit shown on those ones wasn't that great because they're not collecting that much power at such a low angle, they're not perpendicular to the sun. So,
Right.
it's a really great experiment. If you have the ability to clear the snow off, you're obviously going to get a lot. You're going to get more production out of them. These flat ones sat snow covered for most of the winter. You can see that roof. There's not a lot of space to shovel the snow off, and the homeowner didn't really want to. So a couple of the other ones, we've got owners that built big squeegees or big brooms that they can reach up, and they're really diligent in clearing them off. And so snow is definitely going to affect the production, but that NATE study was pretty neat. It didn't affect it as much as most people would expect based on the orientation of the panel. So definitely worth looking up NATE's study on that and having a read if you're interested.
Interesting. I got a question here from Angie Hutchison. Do you have a panel suitable for my RV? I think the giveaway item today would be suitable for an RV.
It's it's a small one, not very many, like pretty low wattage, but I haven't done an RV installation, but most residential panels would work on an RV. Similar mounting brackets. You just have to make sure you have the proper charge controller and your batteries are compatible with that charge controller. So, yeah, there definitely is panels that are suitable. I've never done one, but I'm sure we could look into it if you were interested.
Yeah, I know that I just bought one for my RV, but it's basically portable. I just have to go and hook it up to my battery. It's got the charge controller, then it has an inverter after the fact for plugging in all my devices to charge them off of my battery load, right? So
they have lots of built-in.
Yeah, it cost me a couple $100, I think, at Costco, and I didn't do a ton of research and just thought it seemed like something good to do when we're kind of doing our off-grid camping and we don't have any services. You know, I can imagine how good that would feel to have your home somewhat off-grid as well, right? So
yeah, exactly.
If there's any other questions, please fire away. We're getting close to the end of the show now. We'll announce the winner of the solar panel here shortly. And yeah, any questions, we can certainly address them here on the show. Just send a message in the comments at the bottom here. Yeah, Rick, is there anything that you wanted to mention we haven't touched on yet today?
What do we got here?
Talked about our mounting options, our inverters and shading. We've addressed the panel options. We've talked a bit about considerations, especially in the retrofit. Yeah, I think
we covered most of it. I think basically the big thing is the planning ahead and make sure you do the modeling so you know that you're not wasting your money if there's shading that's going to affect it on your home. So the cost it's a reasonable cost. The paybacks, we've had a couple of the more complicated arrays we've done where the payback wasn't sort of amicable to the homeowners. It was sort of lifetime of the panels payback, but a lot of them are coming in sort of around 12-year payback period. There's all kinds of various calculations. So the payback period is reasonable. I'm not sure what's going to happen with it with the current situation, but the city of Edmonton was working on a PACE program, which is sort of a city of Edmonton financing program for panels and energy efficiency. So hopefully that continues. The city of Edmonton is currently offering a rebate. So you can get 40 cents a watt back from the city of Edmonton, which is great. The province had one that was part of the Energy Efficiency Alberta, but that program's been canceled. So the city of Edmonton really stepped up there. It was 15 cents in conjunction with the provincial one, but they stepped it up to 40 cents a watt. So it's that really helps if you're looking at an array that's sort of $2.50 to $3 a watt. And you get 40 cents of that back. It's looking pretty good. So that's something to take advantage of. We don't do a lot of commercial stuff, but the federal government has some really good tax incentives for commercial companies. If you're wanting to do something with your business, those commercial arrays have some really good tax incentives for that. So it's stuff to look into, and on rebates and refunds and some of the financial incentives like that PACE program that hopefully will continue or get off the ground. The PACE program isn't quite up and running yet, so
Nice.
hopefully we can get that going. So that helps. Anytime you can get a little bit of money back on a renovation or an install or something, it's going to help. So look into all those types of things as well before you go ahead and do that. So
yeah, no kidding. We got a winner for the solar panel. Work and be paid. At Work and Be Paid, you are the winner of the solar panel today. So I will send you a direct message here after the show, and we'll get you set up with instructions how to pick up the panel. Are you going to come to Habitat Studio to pick it up, Rick?
sure, yeah, he can come down to our office, or she can come down to our office and pick that up, or we can make arrangements for something. So
Okay.
should be here in a day or so. Maybe I'll bounce you a message when I've got it in my hands, and we can arrange to get it to
Sounds
somebody.
great. Let's just for those that are considering a retrofit of solar panels on your home, and let's use that 50s bungalow kind of as the kind of the baseline here. What
Yep.
would be an approximate cost to come in? And I know there's a lot of variables.
Yeah.
I know that's a tough question, and I don't like it when clients ask me that sometimes either. But
Yeah.
I mean, does someone need to know they're looking at 15,000 or 50,000? What would you say would be the swing in there?
15,000 is going to get you a really decent sized array. So if you just to round the numbers off at the upper end at $3 a watt, $15,000 is going to be a 5,000 watt system. So that's going to power a pretty. If it is that 50s bungalow, that's gonna produce a good portion of your power for that. So at that $15,000 mark, you're getting a pretty decent size system on your house. If you're getting up into that 50,000, you're looking at 70, 80 panels. You're probably, in most cases, not going to be allowed to do that. The electricity company, you're going to be way overproducing for your house, unless you've got a house that's going net zero and it's all electric, no gas. Then you may need that. So in that sort of $10,000 to $15,000 range, you can put a pretty decent sized array on your average 50s bungalow and produce all, if not most, of your electricity. So we can always do a calculation for somebody on that to sort of do a backwards calculation from that 12,076 kilowatt hours per hour per year to figure out exactly what you need on your house. So definitely
say if somebody's considering you want to put solar on your home, Rick's contact details are up on the screen. So give Rick a call and you guys start the conversation. If you have a renovation project you're considering and there's far more involved, you need somebody kind of to GC that project and make sure all the pieces come together, that's where we would come in, or a company like mine. So if you have specific questions about solar, Rick Young's your man over at Habitat Studio. So you can see on the screen, there's his contact details. If you have questions for me here at Contact Renovations, well, there's my info there. So by all means, you can reach out to us. I'm happy to give you my advice and guide you in the right direction. Our goal here is to steer you clear of landmines when you're planning your project. So like your solar, address your roof first. And I'm sure your solar contractor will point that out to you when they get there. Whoa, hold on. You need a roof or you got a bigger problem. So any last minute questions here? I don't see any that have come in. So we got about 45 seconds left till the show is going to shut us off. So, Rick, thanks so much for joining me today. It's a great topic. I know it can get very technical, but I think the goal today was to give someone an overview of how it would work, what their options would be, considerations to determine whether it's feasible for them in their home, based on their home, their lot, their configuration, and what their expectations are. So thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully we get a chance to work together again soon.
Oh, yeah.
And
All good.
yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm Paul Foster from Contract Renovation to Custom Homes. Art of Renovation Live is 1 o'clock every week on Instagram.